Do you think that bringing in a veteran guy can help him, or does he just need to help himself? And literally, like, it seems like it just wouldn't take that much to really just get your head on straight and go play football. Like, you're not asking much. You're a professional athlete. Like, that's kind of where I sit. It's like, you figure it out. Why do we need to bring in resources for you to be this and blossom to be this mature wide receiver? How come you can't just figure it out? You're an NFL wide receiver.
Yeah, I mean, I think I think he says all the right things, Chris Carter, being obviously speaking from experience. But or Allen Robinson and Van Jefferson not good role models,
right?
Now they're not Hall of Fame players, and Amari Cooper and DeAndre Hopkins are probably on the fringe. Hopkins probably closer than Cooper in terms of being a Hall of Famer. But would they demand that much respect from George? I would hope so. Would they be able to keep him in line? I would hope so. But ultimately, I mean, if it's to be, it's up to me, right? I mean, that's George has heard enough. He'd have to be living under a rock not to hear from multiple people, including likely those that walk the same hallways as him down on the south side, that he needs to grow up. And it's incumbent on him to do it, right? So if you need to bring in Hopkins or Cooper, the problem I have with that is I don't know if they make them any better.
Right.
Like Hopkins didn't do much with Kansas City, and Cooper had one catch, I think, in the playoffs. So for the Bills. So I don't know if they make the Steelers any better. I'd rather see them get talent than a veteran presence hoping that he can harness and help George Pickens. They've tried a lot to do that. They brought in 2 new quarterbacks last year, both of which were veterans. One's a Hall of Famer probably. That didn't work. It was the same stuff. So if I'm Omar Khan and Mike Tomlin, I'm probably like, you know what? Hey, we're not going to pay you right now. It's up to you. And we're also not going to hold your hand. And if you keep doing this, we're just going to bring in other guys. And we'll move on when we can move on at minimal cost.
The Steelers knew what they signed up for. Like, that's the thing. And they've done this a lot in their history. They know what they signed up for. I mean, there's a reason why George Pickens slid in the draft. He had off-the-field issues. He had, obviously other issues that he was dealing with, and injury issues too. But they knew what they signed up for. If you were scouting and you were a coach, like, does the talent ever outweigh the bad? It's a fine line. I understand that. But, like, can a guy be that talented but have other issues that you would be able to justify signing them or drafting them? Being eccentric, being flamboyant, being a showboat, cocky, arrogant, I'd sign up for that any day of the week if you're going to work your tail off and play the game. I was watching a podcast that Shady was on, and he talked about his time and falling out with Chip Kelly. And he said one day he walked in the facility and Chip Kelly said, well, hey, you only got 3 hours of sleep last night. You need to stop going out. And he said, you're also not going to drive your Rolls Royce to the stadium on game day. You're going to ride the bus and leave your car at the hotel. And Shady's like, I'm a star running back in the NFL. I'll drive my car to the stadium. I'm a man. That, I'm like, I don't worry about that. Yeah.
If I'm a scout or a head coach, like, you want to drive your Rolls Royce, you want to show up in the drippiest drip, as they say, like, I'm cool with that. But the minute it gets on the field, you're late, you're causing 15-yard penalties, you're spouting off in the press, out of turn, and that's a consistent habit and a problem for you dating back to college, that's when I would draw the line. Mm-hmm. A guy showing up and having a podcast or being, like, even what Aaron Rodgers does. The talent earlier in his career, quite frankly, would outweigh it. Some of the eccentric stuff off the field, the McAfee stuff. But when the lights turn on, he's all team, all football.
Yeah.
I'm not sure George Pickens is at times. And if you're not 100% of the time all in and focused on doing what it takes to win, play in, play out, whether it's blocking, whether it's clearing out a zone with a full speed go ball, go route, or post, knowing you're probably not going to get the ball, that stuff shows up off the field too in different ways. And I think you really got to be careful with character issues. Attitude, confidence, even arrogance, one thing. Flaws, red flags, I think they were there with George.
Yeah, and I've always found it amazing from the many teammates that I've had. A lot of them, they express themselves off the field, and I'd always be like, how do you live your life doing that? But also, a lot of my teammates would express themselves off the field. They would be them, and this is where I learned this is how I would accept that, and I ended up accepting it, obviously, as a teammate. Express themselves off the field in many different ways. I mean, some guys are really wild, but whenever, like you said, the lights come on, they're ready to go. And I always found that fascinating. Like, how can you turn it on and turn it off at such ease? And like, that's fine. I don't care. Go do what you want. But as long as you do it between the lines, hey, that's all that matters. But that moment that you don't do it between the lines, then that's whenever you start questioning.
Well, and between the lines is not just on Sundays.
Right.
Right. It is Monday through Sunday. 24 hours, not 24 hours, but when you're in that building, you're on time, you're early, you're focused.